Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Awake and Alive podcast. I'm your host, Mike DeCroche. It is just me today. Mark Smith is in a camping trip up in the mountains of North Carolina. We introduce our guest, just a couple reminders and announcements. We're excited to announce that we have recently merged with Awake and Alive with MadFit Magazine. The merger of the magazine is really exciting for us because it's going to really broaden the amount of unconventional fitness and lifestyle information that will be available on the website and in the magazine. And just it brings in a whole group of unconventional trainers and thought leaders to the magazine and the website. So keep a lookout for that. The magazine, the digital version of the magazine, is included with all Awake and Alive online memberships. Through the membership portal, you get access to all of our workout programs, ebooks, follow along videos, and more. So check that out. And also please support our sponsors, including Kettlebells USA. And you can look in our recommended equipment section to check out Kettlebells USA and the other equipment providers that support the show. But with that, I'd like to introduce our guest. Today we have the owner and author Joshua Becker from Becoming Minimalist. Josh is the author of The More of Less, Simplify, Clutter-Free with Kids, Living with Less. And Josh was also recently featured and interviewed in the Netflix documentary Minimalism, a documentary about the important things. Which I recently watched, Josh, last week with my life prepping for this interview with you, and you did a great job. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. Congratulations on the merger. Are you just announcing that for the first time?
We've sort of been trickling it out. MadFit Magazine was getting out their the last edition of the magazine that they were publishing on their own without us. And so now that that's done and being mailed, we decided that we could start mentioning it, and it's pretty exciting. There are a lot of really unconventional trainers that are going to be joining the family, I guess you could say, and it's going to be really great.
Well, great! Congratulations! Happy to be here.
So you've been pretty busy this year. I know we had talked earlier, like maybe last spring, about coming on the show, and you were in the middle of a book tour. Maybe you can tell us about your new book and just a little bit about your last year. Sounds exciting.
The More of Less, Finding the Life You Want Under Everything You Own was released in May of last year, so 7 or 8 months ago. It's been doing really well. It hit almost every bestsellers list except the New York Times list, which was the one I wanted the most, but it hit all the others, USA Today and Publishers Weekly and iBooks and Audible and all that. I just got news today. It's being translated into Russian, which is the 10th language that it's now being translated into. So super excited. It's a book about minimalism. It's a book about owning less, but it's a book not just about owning less, but it's a book about how this improves our life, and how when we begin to focus on the things that actually matter, or as I like to say in the book, the first step to crafting the life you want is to get rid of everything that you don't, and so that's what the More of Less is about.
That's awesome. And that's probably the primary reason that we wanted to have you on is, we're primarily a fitness business and an unconventional training business, but, part of the Awake and Alive is thinking differently about your life and what's important, so that, what good is being in shape if the rest of your life is falling apart is sort of the thing that we always talk to people when they ask us what we're about. And I think this idea of minimalism is really powerful, because there's so many messages out there of that more, you just have to chase more, whether, and it's not just material things. It could be, you have to chase more degrees. You have to chase more titles at work. You have to, there's a lot to it. So I'm curious to know, how did you get into this, and was there anything in your life, a key moment in your life that just said, enough is enough, or what led you on your journey?
Yeah. First of all, you are so right that we live in a culture, in a society that is constantly chasing more and more. When you think, we see 5,000 advertisements every single day. And when you think about it, every single advertisement has at its very heart, at its very foundation, the message that we are not as happy as we could be unless we buy whatever they're selling. Right? That we're not doing anything as well as we could. We're not as happy as we could be. We're not as fulfilled as we could be. We're not even as content as we could be unless we buy this one more thing. And I think we hear these messages so many times and from so many places that from people that are so good at it and so good at crafting that we I think we unintentionally subscribe to the thinking. I don't know if anyone sits across from the coffee table with you and says, what I really want out of life is just to own as much stuff as possible. I mean, that's a pretty small percentage of people. Usually we talk about, usually we talk about significance, or we talk about love and peace and hope. I mean, those are the things that really get excited deep down, but we're just kind of, fed this lie that happiness is found in more and more. So, yeah, to answer your specific question, the short answer is I didn't grow up thinking about minimalism. I was actually introduced to it by my neighbor 8.5 years ago. I was living in Vermont at the time, and I was outside cleaning out my garage on a spring morning. I had a 5-year-old son at the time who was playing alone in the backyard, asking me to come play with him. I kept pushing him off. I can't. Let me finish the garage. Let me finish this project. One thing leads to another. Hours later, I'm still working on the garage. I strike up a conversation with my neighbor who's been working on the outside of her home, and we just complain a little bit about all the energy and time that had gone into our individual projects. And she said, that's why my daughter is a minimalist. She keeps telling me I don't need to own all this stuff. And I remember looking at the pile of things piled up in my driveway. Noticed my 5-year-old son swinging alone in the backyard, and suddenly had this realization that everything I owned wasn't making me happy, but even worse, everything I owned was actually taking me away from the very thing that did bring me happiness and purpose, fulfillment in life. So that was the spark of our journey, where we decided that we were going to own less on purpose, and that we are going to get rid of the things that we don't need and strive to just keep the things that we do need.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have 3 small kids, and I can completely relate to being preoccupied with a lot of things that don't matter. I can't tell you how many Saturday and Sunday afternoons we've spent at shopping malls, and not just around Christmas time, but at furniture stores, and we're like, what are we doing here? We could be at a park, or we could just be playing a game, or we could be taking an overnight trip to the mountains. Just something else that would give us a lot more enjoyment than shopping for a new sofa chair or the perfect matching rug. And
it's pretty significant the time that our possessions take from us. All the time that we spend cleaning and organizing and managing and maintaining and repairing, replacing, and like what you mentioned. And it's not just all the cleaning, the organizing. When you start to think about all the time we spend shopping, or even all the time we spend working just so we can earn the money to go shopping, to buy the thing that we bring home and have to clean and organize and manage and maintain the rest of our lives. The amount of time and energy and the amount of money just the amount of stress, like all those. I'm pretty convinced that none of us really understand the burden that our possessions have become in our lives until we start taking steps to remove them.
Mhm. Are you a Fight Club movie fan with Brad Pitt?
I have not seen the movie. I've only seen the quotes number of times.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that yeah, they fit so well. Like, there's a really great one of we work really hard to buy things we don't need so we can impress people we don't like.
Yeah.
And it seems so true in just so many areas of our life. I mean, I've worked in, working in corporate America. You see it even at the office with people with dress shoes, like stupid things like that, where so-and-so got a new pair of dress shoes or a new car. So I got to go out and I got to do this just to keep up. And then there's time and energy just wasted on this stuff.
Yeah. I think that's, I mean, like that's a pretty important part of this. I mean, there certainly is the culture that we're in, right? Constantly bombarding us with marketing messages and just the consumeristic society that we live in. But I think I discovered through the process that not only are those external forces significant, but there's some internal things too, right? Like that need to impress other people, or the jealousy or envy that a lot of us have. I don't know. We tend to be, I don't know, almost a little more selfish and greedy by nature than any of us would ever want to admit. Tend to want to prove our success. I grew up with a brother who was just always very successful in sports, and I can remember, like, even to this day, I kind of feel like this tug to want to prove to him that I'm successful in my life. And I just think that those two forces come together, right? The external messaging, and then that internal, like, kind of wanting to impress other people or keep up with other people, and it kind of forms this perfect storm in our lives, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's a great segue. I wanted to talk about two of my favorite blog posts that you wrote, and the first one is stop comparing your life to other people. In that post, you talk about that this obsession with things and more and achievement is sort of driven by this constant comparison of ourselves to other people's paycheck, the home size they have, even their physical features. That's a big part of his fitness, is this constant comparison of physical aesthetics, strength, and these numbers, metrics. Well, how much does this guy lift? How much does that guy lift? Instead of looking at ourselves. And why do you think this is so destructive? And you kind of touched on it, but how does it lead us to become obsessed with accumulation of all things in life?
Yeah, I have a number of thoughts there. One of the problems with comparison, it seems to me, is that there's no, well, number one, that there's no joy in it. Comparison is the thief of joy. I think Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Comparison is the thief of joy," and one of the reasons is because there's no end to it. I mean, we can make more money than anybody else, but then we start comparing, right, the physical features, or we could reach the pinnacle of our industry, but there's always someone else who has more money or is more successful in that area, and so there's no end to it. Another problem with comparison is that we often compare the worst that we know about ourselves to the best that we assume of others. And so we know that we're struggling in this area, or we have these certain weaknesses or deficiencies, and we look just on the externals of someone else, and we're like, gosh, they don't struggle with any of that stuff. They must have it all. They must have it all sorted out, just because we can't see the inner turmoil that they're going through, which is probably pretty similar to ours. And then probably the third thing, and I'll relate this back to fitness, is So often we compare all the things that don't really matter, or we're comparing all of the wrong things. I wrote a blog post one time where I just made the case that we get embarrassed over all the wrong things. We get embarrassed because we don't have as nice of shoes as somebody else. We get embarrassed because we're comparing our physical bodies to someone else, comparing our paychecks to someone else. Meanwhile, we're never comparing, like who's the most grateful among us. Who is more generous about us. Maybe we shouldn't be comparing who's spending the most on shoes in our office. Maybe we should be comparing who's giving the most to provide people who don't have shoes with new shoes, right? Like that's the thing that we should be comparing. Like those are the races that we should be running. And so when it comes to physical fitness, I once heard a quote one time that was kind of life-changing to me, and he said that we should be treating our bodies as instruments rather than ornaments. And the whole idea was if you get in this race where I'm only chasing fitness so that I can look a certain way, so that I can look better than the next person, so I can lift more than the next person. Like when that becomes what I'm chasing, I'm just constantly comparing myself. Instead, we should view our bodies as an instrument. Like, what are you? What is your purpose in life? What are you called to accomplish? What do you want to accomplish in life? What is the benefit that you can bring to the people around you? And then fitness should be about how do I take care of my body in a way that I can fulfill that better, right? How do I, what are the habits and what are the ways that I'm tailoring my body so that I can fulfill my purpose better, not just, try to lift more or, look sexier than the other person.
Yeah, sure. We've talked about this a couple times on the show or frequently because, our philosophy is that you should be taking care of yourself, creating a functional body that moves well, that's healthy, so you can get the most possible out of life. I guess one of the biggest complaints I have with bodybuilding is one, it's similar to this minimalism stuff. It masks insecurities, like you talked about, and like you said, it never ends. Like, I'm never going to be big enough. There's always going to be somebody bigger, and that obsession never stops. Or I'm never going to be skinny enough, but we're all different. We all have different genetics. So there's no point in comparing ourselves to other people. It should be about getting the most out of ourselves. To what the other thing you said, I couldn't agree more about focusing on what's important, giving back to our community, having a stable, healthy family that's, divorce is prevalent in our society. Maybe part of that is this obsession with materialistic things, focusing on our careers and the things we have and impressing other people, and less on having healthy kids and healthy relationships with our kids and our spouses. And I just think it's great. I couldn't agree with you more. And I guess switching to, there's another blog post I wanted to ask you about, and that is the 10 reasons to escape excessive consumerism. And again, we've covered several of these things already, but some of the things you mention are less debt, less caring about possessions, less desire to upscale our lifestyles, our less interest in impressing other people, more contentment in life, and then more free time for what matters. A couple that stand out that I want to ask you about is, I guess to start, is more contentment. How does having less and focusing on less in every area of your life make you more content or make someone more content?
Sure. What was the exact title of the blog post? 10 Reasons to Escape Excessive Consumerism?
Yeah.
I think I make a point in there. I'll just take a step back, even before I get into that, which is a great question, by the way. But I'll just take a step back. I think even the titling of that was pretty important to me. To live is to consume, right? I mean, to live is to need shelter and to need clothing and to need tools, whatever that looks like in our individual career or occupation or purpose or goals in life. And so for me, minimalism has never been about, certainly it's not about no consumption, but it's more about highlighting what is most important in your life by removing all the things that have become a distraction. And minimalism is always going to look very different from person to person. You with 3 kids, you with 3 young kids is going to look different than me with 2 teenagers. Is going to look different than the person with no children. Minimalism is going to look different for the grandparent than it is for the parent, than it is for the young adult. Minimalism is even going to look different from, I'm a writer, like I write full time. So minimalism for me as a writer looks different than minimalism would for an auto mechanic or for a farmer or for a teacher or for an accountant. We're all going to need different things in order to do what we need to do and where we're pursuing our passions. One of the things I think I learned about contentment is that in many ways our excess, the amount of excess stuff that we own and that we buy and that we purchase is many ways a signal of our discontent. That when you are discontent and you don't have any money, then it looks like jealousy. It looks like envy. Maybe on the worst days, it looks like dishonesty or taking what you think you deserve. But when you are discontent and you have money, what it looks like is closets that are too full, drawers that don't close, garages that we can't park our cars in, houses that are too big, right? Because when we're discontent but we have money, we're able to just go buy whatever it is we think is going to make us content. And we bring it home and we discover that we're not really content. And so we want something else. We start looking for happiness in the next thing we buy, or the next, the bigger house, the nicer car, or the new line of fashion. And so suddenly we just start accumulating all these things that we don't need, thinking that it's going to satisfy the discontent in our lives, when in reality it never is. And so one of the things that minimalism, I think, did for me is it almost forced me to find contentment in my life, or at least it opened me up to find contentment in my life, where if I said, okay, I'm no longer going to be out buying a whole bunch of new things. How do I find happiness where I am? And how do I find contentment with what I have already, rather than thinking I can just add to it? So that would have been one of the points that I was trying to make in that article, that when we remove this pursuit of excess, we're suddenly able to find that, in reality, I already have everything I need for happiness. I already have everything I need to be content. I've just never been forced to find it in what I have, when I could keep looking for it elsewhere.
Sure. Just to play devil's advocate, I mean, that's a challenge, right? I mean, I struggle with that. My wife and I live in a it's about a 1,400 square foot home. It's a 900 square feet upstairs. There's 2 bedrooms upstairs. We have, with 3 small kids, like I mentioned. And we constantly do this battle of, well, there's nothing wrong with the house that we have. We don't need a bigger house. The kids can share a room. But then there's this outside pressure of, man, it would be nice to have a bigger house. It would, it'd be nice to have more space. Each kid could have their own bedroom. But then again, it's that turmoil, because we don't need a bigger house. This house is just fine. The mortgage payment's manageable. And I don't know. I know there's a lot of things with people, especially in careers, where it's hard to come to a place where you say, I've got enough. I don't need any more promotions. I don't need any more degrees or certifications or things. And it just seems like that's a bigger, more difficult thing for most people, especially in our society, than just to simplify it to, oh, I don't need any stuff, and I can just shut down that desire internally. I don't know if you have any advice for where to begin that journey.
Yeah. So, yeah, I would probably, I don't know, maybe want to adjust your thinking a little bit, because I'm not talking about losing desire. I'm not talking about losing passion. I'm not talking about not working hard. I'm not
Uh-huh.
talking about not trying to improve ourselves. I'm not even talking that, you know, we shouldn't be pursuing other degrees.
Uh-huh.
What I think we should be devoting our energy and our resources towards is living the most significant life that we can be living.
Mhm.
And so sometimes that means more degrees, right? Sometimes that means um, going back to school. Sometimes that means pursuing the promotion. If that promotion means I'm going to be able to do what I want to do better because of that promotion, right? So I'm not in the in just to give you a little backstory in the for the book The More of Less. I really like the cover. It's blue. It's got this kind of pulp fiction feel with an open suitcase and a light coming out of it. Very early in my conversations with the publisher, they asked what I wanted the cover to look like. And I said, I don't really know what I want it to look like, but I know what I don't want it to look like. I don't want the cover to be plastic chairs on a beach somewhere under an umbrella, or lounge chairs on a beach. Because to me, minimalism isn't about checking out of life. To me, minimalism isn't about neglecting my responsibilities, or neglecting my opportunities, or neglecting my potential for the sake of sitting on a beach somewhere on a deserted island. For me, minimalism is about removing the distractions so that I can be more passionate about those things, and I can divert more energy and resources and become better at my work, and better at my vocation, whatever that may be. So I would say that for the first part. For your house situation, I would, there are certainly stages of life that look different. And maybe three young kids can share a room, but by the time they're teenagers, they're going to need a little more privacy. Maybe you discover, I don't know if you're working from home or working from the office, but maybe you eventually are like, for me to do my job well, I need to have a little more space that I can devote to that. Maybe if you're a family that doesn't spend a lot of time at home, but would prefer to be out traveling, or prefer to be out on the road, then having a smaller living space would allow you to do more of that. If on the other hand, you're a family that does spend a lot of time at home, you like being the family where your kids' friends come over to play a lot, right? Like, those are some of the things that I would be factoring into the home question of how, what is the life that we want to be living, and then how much square footage, how many bedrooms do I need in a house in order to make that life more of a possibility. The problem, and the fact that you're even asking that question, I think means that you're less likely to make a mistake. I think the people who really run into problems are, they buy way more house than they need, because they want to live in a certain neighborhood, or they want to show off, and they have all this tons of space that they're paying for, that isn't actually helping their life in any way, but is actually taking them away from some of the things that they would much rather be doing, instead of taking care of a big house.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we think about is if we buy a bigger house, then all of a sudden we've got all these rooms we need to fill with things. And then we're back to the roller coaster of, okay, we got to work harder. We've got to come up with more money so that we can decorate all these rooms and fill them with stuff. And
or some people even they get stuck. They get stuck in the job that they have. They get the promotion and they get the big raise, so they go buy the nice big house. Well, then, 4 or 5 years down the road, they're like, gosh, I really wish I could get out of my job and go do something else. But they're so reliant upon the salary from that job that they couldn't even go do something else if they wanted to.
Sure. And that goes back to the less debt. I think most people, I've worked in financial services for many years, and it's amazing to me at how many people constantly, accumulate debt and are willing to forego, future spending for the sake of accumulating today. And then, like you said, they create this personal prison for themselves of, I have to work, I have to keep doing these things just to pay these bills, just to pay for all the stuff in my house that either gets worn out, or cars that depreciate. Yeah, I don't know. One of the things, though, I think you mentioned that I wanted to ask you about is this misconception about minimalism. There is the thought out there that it does mean shutting down. That it means not being ambitious, and there's nothing wrong with having nice things or being successful or really striving and putting the most into everything. I think what's important is, what does all that stuff mean to you? What do promotions mean to you? What do degrees mean to you? Is it just status? Are things just status symbols, or are they things that you accumulate because they actually provide real value to you?
So what minimalism does more than anything else is it removes distractions. So I went through the list already, right? It gives us more time and energy and money, less stress, more focus. It frees up our lives to pursue our passions, however we define them. Mm-hmm. And that's always going to look different for different people. But at its heart, the idea of at least minimalism in physical possessions, I think that the best thing that it does for people is it removes the pursuit of happiness in the things that we're buying, right? It removes the pursuit of happiness in possessions. And as a result, it opens up the opportunity to begin looking for happiness elsewhere, wherever we want to look. And so some people are going to say, okay, I wasn't, like, you're right, like buying a bunch of stuff didn't make me happy. I'm going to try traveling the world. So I'm going to get rid of my things. I'm going to be able to travel the world. Well, that's an opportunity. And they may find that traveling the world gives them all the happiness that they need. Maybe they start traveling the world, and after 6 months, they're like, you know what? This isn't nearly as much fun as I thought it was going to be. Maybe I should be pursuing happiness in early retirement, or whatever. And so they're able to start looking elsewhere for happiness. And whether they find it the first place they look, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but at least they've dislodged this lie that we're going to be happier with more things, and are able to start pursuing it elsewhere. How this relates to work, because I've kind of mentioned it a few times, and you've mentioned it a few times. One of the things about work that I think we need to realize is that in many ways, work has become selfish in our society. That I go to work so that I can make the paycheck, so I can use to buy the house or fund the retirement or do the traveling. Like, I work for the paycheck that comes to me. But in that way, work is in many ways entirely selfish, right? I'm only doing it because of what I get out of it. When in reality, work should be viewed selflessly. The whole idea of division of labor is that we can benefit other people better. So I always kind of think, how this whole thing gets started, right? At some point in human history, everybody's farming and hunting and building their homes and doing their own sewing, right? And someone comes to Larry and he's like, hey, Larry, you're a better farmer, but I'm a better builder. How about you go farm all day and I'll build all day? At the end of the day, we'll have better food and we'll have more stable homes. And then someone else comes along and they're like, hey, I'm a really good hunter. How about I go hunt? And when I come back, I can trade my game for your fruits and for your home. And then someone else says, hey, I'm really good at sewing. Why don't I make the clothes for all of us? Right. And in this way, everybody benefits because people are doing what they're doing best in service of other people, for the service that they provide to us. And so depending on whatever job you're in, right? If you're in the financial industry, then you understand numbers, you understand money, you're doing the work that you do well so that someone else can be building the roads that you can't do. So someone else can be finding a way to distribute food better to all the people. And so when you view work that way, when you view work selflessly, what am I providing to other people in this role rather than just what am I getting out of it? I think that's when work becomes far more fulfilling, and how I think it begins to fit into minimalism a little bit better. Not that I'm trying to get the promotion just so that I can make more money or have more power or have more prestige, but I want the promotion because in that role, I know that I can benefit society better than in the entry-level position that I have now. So that's just kind of the little mind shift that's been pretty helpful to me concerning work, and finding more motivation and passion for it.
Oh, sure. I think I can speak for my partners and I when we say that's why we got into this business is how can we present good ideas and get people like yourself in front of other people, to get these messages out. And that's what drives me and keeps me going is how can I provide more value to as many people as possible? The more people I see that visit our website and download our podcast, those things are reinforcing that I am helping people. When I was in finance, in the corporate world, it seemed like everybody was just chasing some of the things that we talked about for the sake of glorifying themselves, proving to other people how much better or smarter they are than everybody else, or validating the choices that they made to get to where they are or the choices that they didn't make. But I agree. It really should be about what am I providing to society and finding something, finding the drive in that versus just, getting that paycheck. How many commas are in my paycheck at the end of the month? And what can I do with that when I get home?
And I think that, I think that most jobs you can find that. Like there's a pretty small percentage of jobs where you can't find how you're serving other people, whether you're in the financial industry or whether I have a landscaper friend, and I was talking this to, and he's like, well, I just I trim trees, and I'm like, thank you for trimming trees. I don't know how to do that. When I go for a run in my neighborhood and I get to enjoy the beauty around me, like that's your service. That's what you're doing for us. You're making all of our neighborhoods that much more beautiful. And so I think that the most jobs you can see, you can shift. This. The grocery clerk, as I mentioned, the cashier at the grocery store, like thank you for being a cashier at the grocery store. It means I don't have to drive to the farm to get my food, right? I mean, we've kind of worked out a way where the farm can come to me. So anyway, that's off topic, but something I'm pretty passionate about.
What you mean? When I was in the investment world, there were really successful investment professionals who were focused on provide and help for my clients for the sake of developing a great future. And in addition to that, I am connecting entrepreneurs who are selling the investments and their ideas to these people. So there's a shared connection of people connecting ideas and hope. And then there
Yeah.
are the other, investment professionals who it's strictly about, I need the sale because I need to get my commission so I can have my Ferrari and my, 5,000 square foot home and my golf club membership. And those guys don't care necessarily about, they're driven by the accomplish, what they get versus how they're serving other people. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I understand exactly what you're saying,
Great.
switching to topics just a little bit on the concept of minimalism itself. I think one of the reasons that a lot of people don't adopt this lifestyle or don't even consider it is how it's portrayed in the media. I mean, most of the time you see tiny house shows where people have this tiny house that's out in the woods. They have nothing, or you see pictures of somebody walks into their house and there's a singular chair against the wall with bare walls and nothing anywhere. And I think it sends the wrong message. So I guess my question is, what is a practical way for the average guy with a couple kids, to implement this in their life? Because for myself, I struggle with, it's easy for me to simplify the things I have, limit the clothes I have and the shoes. But when it comes to my kids, I mean, 90% of the things we have belong to the children because of gifts, because they don't understand this concept. So that it's just more and more and more to them. So I don't know, like where can this journey begin for most people? What do you suggest?
Okay. So, yeah, when I started writing about minimalism, the tiny home thing was still pretty new, taking off a little bit. But I was certainly reading about people who were trying to get down to 50 things, or they're trying to get down to 15 things. They were moving out, into the forest or whatever. And I always said, like none of that seemed attractive to me. Like I never wanted to, list out my things on a sheet of paper. I never wanted to move into a 200 square foot tiny home, because it never fit necessarily what I wanted to do with my life. I liked being in a neighborhood. I liked my kids being at a good school. I liked my kids' friends. I liked being involved with my neighbors. I liked having people over to my home. And so there were like a number of different, I always say purpose-driven, like some purpose-driven reasons for why I wasn't going to live it out that way, as I saw some people doing. Pretty early on, someone left a comment on my blog. This, I wasn't even really promoting it. I was just kind of journaling what I was doing at the time. And her comment was, "Hey, I really like the way you talk about this. You make minimalism seem so rational." And I thought, yes, that's the perfect word. Like, I'm talking about a rational approach to minimalism. And by rational, I mean it is thoughtful, it is thought out, it is based on what do I want to accomplish with my life? What do I need to keep in order to get me there? What is my stage in life? What is my season in life? And just like a thoughtful approach where the goal isn't, I just want to try to own as few things as possible. Like, minimalism has never been the end for me. The goal of minimalism has never been how few things can I own. Minimalism has always just been a means to an end, a means to living a life of impact and significance, a life where I can devote time and energy to my family and my kids. So that's, kind of so how I got past some of those misconceptions pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I think for people who want to get started in it, my thought is always start in the easiest, most lived in area of your home. So for some people that would be like the living room, or even the car. Like, the car's a pretty good place. That's where I started. I was cleaning out my garage. My car was like parked next to the curb. And so in the evening when I pulled it into the garage, I just started noticing all these things in my car that didn't need to be in my car. There were CDs that we didn't listen to, and old sunglasses and maps and like ketchup packets and books and kids' toys, like all these things that didn't need to be in my car. And I just grabbed a bag and I threw everything in there except for like the license and registration, like just kept the bare minimum. And then I didn't even throw the stuff away. I just put it at the side of the garage. And the next morning when I got in my car, it felt so nice in there. It felt calm. It felt peaceful. It felt like I could focus not just on driving, but I could focus on my day ahead. And I said, this is great. I want this elsewhere in my life. And so I went to the living room and I just took out everything in my living room that didn't need to be there. Old magazines and old DVDs, some decorations that didn't mean anything to us. I think there were probably some toys, some children's toys that had collected in there. I'm like, this just doesn't have to be in this room. And I took it all out and I sat in the living room and I'm like, oh, this feels so wonderful. Where else can I do this in my life? So I went to the bedroom and the closet and the kitchen and the home office and kind of almost built up that muscle, right? Like start in easy spaces, begin to notice the results and begin to notice how you're feeling better, and then kind of use that strength to go to harder and harder places. I would say, just because you mentioned parents specifically, because that's usually the most common question. What do I do with my kids' stuff, or what do I do with my spouse or partner stuff? And I say, number one, like you can't start there. I mean, it's entirely unfair for you to say, we need to minimize the house, so I'm going to make sure the kids get rid of all their things. Like that's just unfair. You need to do your own things. You need to realize that everyone else's clutter is easier to see than your own. So go through your own closet, go through your own kitchen cabinets, go through your own bedroom, go through your own garage. Like, do those things before you force this upon your kids, or before you even expect your partner to start embracing the idea. You got to do the work yourself, lead by example in that way, learn a little bit about what works well and what emotions you're feeling so that you can help your kids through it longer in the long run.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. Setting a good example. When my wife and I started down this path, it really was like you said, which I'm going to make her listen to the part about her car, what you said about the car, because her car is the one place that we have not yet minimalized. It is loaded with kids' toys and cereal bars and everything that possible that she could squeeze in that tiny RAV4. But yeah, I mean, it was really hard at first for us to get into this. But the more we did it, the more it just became a habit of, when we go to buy something or we see extra things around the house, constantly evaluating if we need them, especially if we say, gosh, why is this in the way? So I say, well, that's just been there, or we haven't touched that in a year or more. Then saying, well, do we really need it? If we don't, let's just get rid of it because it's just taking up space. And but yeah, I like the way that the title of your book, Simplify, and sort of the tone of that book of really, it's more about balance. It's not extremes. It's just realizing that there are a lot of excess things in our lives, and just identifying them and getting rid of them. And it's not these extremes, which I think sometimes, or most often, minimalism is portrayed as oh, you gotta, it's stop thinking this way, go all the way to the far left as quickly as you can, live out of a backpack, go into the woods, and quit caring. But I think it really is, like you said, it's about balance and identifying some of that.
Yeah. Simplify is it's really short. It's a good place to start. I mean, it's maybe 30 or 40 pages. Only electronic versions are even available of it. And it's a great introduction to this idea. I think it makes a short, quick case for owning less and how to begin implementing it into your life. So it's a good place to start. The more of less is much more, I think, comprehensive. I wrote Simplify about 1.5 years into finding minimalism, and I wrote The More of Less 7 years after finding minimalism. So I think The More of Less is more mature in that way. It's certainly longer and more comprehensive, and it kind of starts not just with this idea of minimalism, but how does it branch out into other areas of life. So yeah, I mean, depending on, if someone's listening and they want to find out a little bit more, those would be two pretty good places to start. And then the Clutter Free with Kids book. I mean, anyone who has kids, that just kind of the middle section has like 10 very specific challenge areas I think parents run into: toys and clothes and collections and artwork, and how do you begin to manage those in a practical way in your home.
I could just do like what my dad did to us, and when we were bad, he'd make us sit on the bed and he'd just get a trash bag and just do it as punishment and just eliminate things. Just bad childhood memories. I can remember that was the worst. But thanks for coming on the show. We really think that it's really important, especially for our readers, to get more. We want to provide more than just this is how you swing a kettlebell. This is how you use. This is how to take this and then get this other information to get is the best life possible, which is sort of what being fully awake and alive is all about. And I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show and talk to us about your books and everything you got going on and sharing your ideas.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity. I always enjoy talking about it. I love your approach to what you're doing. So thanks for the opportunity, man. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned your books. Is there anything else you want to plug or tell people where they can find you and if they're interested in learning more about you and following you?
Becomingminimalist.com is kind of the home page and the home place for everything I do. There are a number of different books depending on your stage of life or how much you want to read about this. Just because you asked, we do I have a 12-week uncluttered course that I take people through. And I always say if the course is for anyone who really wants to own less, but just can't seem to get there. And so you've read the books and you want to get organized and you want to declutter, but for some reason, you're just not able to get there. The course, I think, offers a lot of things that the book can't offer. It offers community and accountability and those sorts of things. But anyway, I usually just send people to the website, becomingminimalist.com, which is where everything seems to flow out of. But those are some other areas for people who really kind of touched by this and want to implement some of the principles more. Yeah,
we're going to the blog posts that we mentioned and we talked about, I am going to link those up on the site. I'll share them in our lifestyle section, and in there I will include a link to the things we discussed, the course, a couple of your books, and
great.
Yeah, anything else? If there's anything else, let us know. We're glad to share it for you. With that, though, I think it's a good place to wrap up. Maybe in the future we can have you back on again, Josh, and if your schedule allows. Just a reminder to listeners to please check out the website, IamAwakeandAlive.com. Subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and keep your eye out for MadFit Magazine. In the coming weeks, we'll be announcing some really great stuff and partnerships with some coaches, and it's a really great resource for unconventional training and unconventional thinking, and we hope that you'll really like the publication. But thanks, Josh. Take care, and we'll talk to everybody next week.
Thanks so much. Bye.